Welcome to another episode of the Growth Podcast. Today I'm joined by Will, and we're going to talk about his growth and, the challenges, the questions we usually ask, the challenges that all of us face in our journey of growth and development, really. So welcome, Will.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. Will and I have not met before, so this is the first time we're chatting, and let's dive right into it. So, Will, tell me a little bit about yourself, and let's start there. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. If my appearance doesn't reveal it, I can reveal explicitly that I'm kind of old, 73 to be exact. So the first
you look late younger. I just want to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But the first part of my life, although I went to college and had a major in English, I spent most of my life in government as a civil servant.
Mm-hmm.
And when I retired 17 years ago, I finally got to pursue what I really wanted to do, which was write.
Mm-hmm.
I got a master's in English with an emphasis in creative writing from Sacramento State in 2008, and did a lot of traveling after that, some amount of writing, and then had the opportunity to get an MFA, a master's in fine arts, which is more focused specifically on writing here at Fresno State from 2018 to 2022.
Okay.
During the course of that, since I've been here in Fresno, I discovered that CMAC existed, that there was a possibility to learn the techniques and use the resources here to create films. And I started doing that while I was in the MFA. I didn't have a lot of time because of my studies, but I started taking classes on how to operate the cameras and the equipment in the studio, and working as a volunteer on other people's productions.
Mm-hmm.
And then after my graduation, I was able to devote more time to that. And then at some point, I volunteered for a shoot that was actually the first episode of a monthly event for over 7 months. And it turns out that I was basically the only person that volunteered. So
you got to do a lot?
I got to do way more than I expected and learned an incredible amount because I was everything. I set up the equipment, did the recording, did the editing, and of all of those things, the editing was probably the most challenging, putting together a viable product at the end of the process. Mm-hmm. So I did that for 7 months, and being encouraged by surviving through that process, I started doing recordings of productions of my own. I participated in a couple of the timed movie contests here, where you're given a prompt, which includes a tagline for the product you're going to create, and a prop that you have to use in it, and one line that one of the characters in it has to offer. And that is the minimal structure they give you for a writing contest. And then you create the script, film it, and have it submitted within 72 hours. So I've done 2 of those. And based on that, I'm actually participating in a workshop here today to learn more about the finer points of creating a full-length feature film script. And so that's where I'm headed. But I also still, hearkening back to my college education, want to do writing for publication. My thesis from my MFA is book length. It's over 200 pages, and I'm working with not as much energy and involvement as I wish on getting that published. But I'm also submitting pieces of it and other writing to various literary journals.
That sounds incredible. It sounds like you really honed in on your passion and what you what you really want to spend your time doing. So I'm not quite as old as you are, but I would imagine that as you get older, the urgency of really spending your time wisely and you know, wanting to do things that you really want to be doing becomes more of a thing for you.
Right.
And so, can you tell us a little bit about that for those of us who are
My perspective,
younger?
my perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You're familiar with the movie The Bucket List, right? And that has become has kind of become a buzzword or buzz phrase. How to have a bucket list, the things you want to do before you die. And I have one of those, and I've accomplished a lot of those. But it seems like the tendency for bucket lists is just something you want to do or you want to acquire. But if it's in terms of just doing it for the sake of your own momentary pleasure, it's not nearly as significant as actually creating something that will have a lasting impact, which is really my goal for my writing, my film creation, is to be able to leave something behind that is worth paying attention to after I'm gone.
So I'm just going to interject here.
Sure.
You raise a great point, and a question I often ask my guests is, "What makes you tick? You know, what do you live for? What is it that you?" And I think you're alluding to that by what you just said. But can you expand on
Sure.
what that is?
I personally, for the last 40 years, I've been practicing Nichiren Buddhism with a lay organization called SGI USA, which is part of SGI, Soka Gakkai International. And so Soka Gakkai actually is a Japanese in origin, and the Buddhism that we practice, is Japanese in origin from Nichiren Daishonin from the 13th century. But Soka Gakkai actually means value creation society. Soka means value creation. Gakkai means society. And that is really kind of the underlying goal for life, is to create value and to be happy. And by happy, we don't mean just to be elated or to be rapturous, because that doesn't last. It can't happen all the time. No matter how good it is, it's not going to last forever. But you can be happy in our sense, in the most elevated sense, I think, is to be composed and to be moving forward through whatever circumstances you find yourself in. Did that answer your question?
So yes, it answered my question, but I have a question about, being happy, being happy part. And so I agree with you. I feel like, there's momentary happiness and there's, the way I think about it is contentment.
Right, or composure.
Yeah. And to, to be happy, to be content in the pursuits that you're engaged in life, right? And so I don't want to talk about it. I'll let you, because I think this is critical. It's shaped your thinking, right? And so can we dive a little deeper into both, adding value and what that means for you? I think you said, plenty about what that may mean. And also, what does it mean to be happy for you? If you were to really get into the details of how you feel on a daily when you're engaged in the work that makes you happy.
Well, the work that I do that makes me happy, the creation of video or written products, makes me happy because it's.
Is there anything specific that you write about, or what genres or?
Well, my primary genre for writing is nonfiction, but it's not exclusively memoir. It's not about my life, and as I'm sure you probably know, memoir is really not autobiography. The only people that can write an autobiography and expect to have it read is famous people,
Yeah.
preferably famous and notorious people. And I'm neither of those, but I can write about my experience and try to make it applicable universally so that it can provide some insight or encouragement or at least entertainment to other people.
Can you give us an example of, a piece of writing that you've done? Just the gist of, what it's about?
Well, I have a certain amount of distance from the time that I finished my thesis, and I haven't, unfortunately, revisited it as much as I would like to. But one of the essays in it is actually the concept for the whole thesis was I chose all of the essays are about 4-letter words, because 4-letter word has become an epithet for a swear word, right? And we know what those are, but there's an abundance of other 4-letter words in the dictionary that have a variety of meanings, and that was what really fascinated me about how those meanings can diverge and evolve over centuries of use. A word like fair, which can mean a place that you go and get on a ride or eat cotton candy, but it can also mean, in theory, just, as in part of contributing to justice.
Okay.
That's
so you're more interested in I guess
I use sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But I use anecdotes in pretty much all of the essays because I was told, and I believe that the people that told me knew what they were talking about, that it's important to have a personal element in your writing when you're writing nonfiction, to have some, and so I offer anecdotes from my life that apply to what I'm writing about, but I also use historical events and input from other authorities on whatever I'm writing about.
Okay. So going back to my question, what do you think the value that you add is? How would you describe it?
Well, I work really hard it's kind of a natural inclination anyway, at contributing an element of humor to what I write, that people can find humor either laughing at or laughing about what has happened in my life.
Okay. I think that's very valuable, to me at least. People have hectic, busy, sometimes not so happy lives, and a little humor can go a long way.
Right.
Okay, and in terms of the fulfillment, so how do you, when you're writing or when you're collaborating with others to create content, how do you feel? What does that, happiness kind of feel like in the moment for you?
Well, there is an element, a reward in a sense of completion when you feel like you've reached a point like this is it, it's ready to share with the world, so to speak. And that's the primary immediate feedback. If you're able to get something published, that's an additional level of reward. And in writing, that's been pretty much it for me. I haven't done a whole lot of collaborative writing, but in terms of film creation, there is a lot of collaboration that goes on. Primarily with my partner, and just being able to achieve a synergy where working together creates something better, where I'm able to hear what she has to say and take and implement that in what I'm doing, and vice versa.
Okay. So you said something at the very beginning of our conversation around spending, practically your entire career as a civil servant before retiring and sort of diving into what you're really passionate about.
Right.
How long were you a civil servant for?
Let's see. I was hired by the Board of Equalization from the state of California in 1984, and I retired from the Department of Alcohol and Drug Programs in 2008. And over that span of time, it's 24 years. And over that span of time, I worked for the first 15 years for the Board of Equalization and went from being a simple clerk, essentially, to, and I realized there was no opportunity for upward mobility there, probably anywhere, as a clerk. And so I got into the computer industry, which back then in the early 80s was primarily mainframe for bureaucracies. And so I took a job as a tape librarian because mainframes did all of their data storage and transfer and processing off of tapes. And that was my first job. But then I took some college classes to learn programming and became a COBOL programmer. I realized that I didn't want to sit at a desk 10 hours a day programming, and I became a network support technician. And then, fortunately, which was a rewarding job, I enjoyed doing that because it was almost all hands-on. It was dealing with servers and actual wire connections, and I personally find that kind of work rewarding too. But it was also the advent of the local area network of LANs based on desktop computers, PCs. And so that's where I went. I got certified as a network administrator and spent the next decade doing that. And then I had the opportunity, when I was in that MA master's program at Sacramento State, one of my classmates.
When did you do that? Was this while you were still
Yeah,
somewhere?
I was still working.
Yep.
And one of my classmates in that, or one of my fellow students in that MA program, was also an employee for the Department of Alcohol and Drug Programs. And at that point, I had transferred from Board of Equalization to Caltrans, Department of Transportation, and she invited me to apply for a position, not in computer support, but as a legislative analyst, where I would actually read pending bills and forecast the significance for our agency, which was, it was more of what I had gone to school for and more of what I could have a passion for, to actually analyze and express myself in writing. So I took her invitation, got a job. And the only thing that terminated my career there when I did, I chose to retire early because my adult son wanted me to help him out with his children, because he'd suddenly become divorced and was not up to the task of taking care of a household and 2 children by himself. So that there was kind of a fortunate confluence of situations where he wanted me to come up there, and I was just completing my master's degree. So I essentially did both at the same time and spent the next, 2008 to 2013, the next 5 years in Humboldt County, living with him and my grandchildren.
That sounds like a great experience.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay. And so I just want to get a sense of, your frame of mind while you were, in the tech, computer kind of space, doing that kind of thing. Did you feel like, you were you gravitating towards, writing and that sort of work? And if so, did you feel this? Did you feel torn? Let me put it that way, where you're like, "Oh, I'm really passionate about this, but I'm somewhat stuck doing this, and this doesn't feel good." And did you feel any of that? And if you did, how did you deal with it? What was that process like? Let me just.
Yeah. I definitely felt frustrated at various points, particularly when I was doing the programming, working 10 hours a day, which I chose to do. I could have worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, but I wanted an extra day off every week. And so I worked 10-hour days. But whether it's 8 or 10 hours, sitting at a desk programming was just not what I wanted to be doing. And also, we could throw it into the hopper of information that I remember covering alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And back then I was a practicing alcoholic, which was part of how I dealt with it, which did not necessarily have positive effects. I got divorced.
Yeah.
And
So are you saying that the fact that you were in that kind of a job, that was the main reason that drove you to drink, and that impacted your relationship with your former spouse?
Well, no, I had made my way to drinking prior to meeting that spouse. I was in the Army, actually, is where I started drinking. It was kind of a peer pressure motivation to drink, and I did not deal well with it.
Okay. So it wasn't the job that kind of
it's just it became, once I started drinking, it became habitual, but it also it had, initially it had its peaks and valleys of my personal effectiveness, whether, how much I was drinking and when and why I was drinking.
Okay. And so this podcast, is about growth.
Right.
And giving up drinking is a big, step towards growth.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about, and like I said at the beginning, if you don't feel comfortable answering any of these questions,
sure,
that's completely fine. What was that process like? Like what, flipped in your head that you said, okay, I need to move, I need to stop drinking.
Move beyond that?
Yeah.
Well, in the rooms of AA, which is where I achieved sobriety, because I'd had at least one crisis where I ended up in jail, and on my own decided that I was not going to drink, but I chose to drink what that was called non-alcoholic beers, but they're still alcoholic. It's like 0.5% alcohol per bottle. So if you drink a 6-pack, it's the equivalent of drinking one beer. And quickly I reverted to drinking however much I wanted. And the son that I retired to be with, has unfortunately inherited my tendency to, or penchant for alcoholism, for drinking. And so we were drinking buddies as much as father and son. And then it was a second unfortunate set of circumstances that ended up in jail. And the potential consequences of that made me decide that I absolutely needed to stop drinking. As I started to say, in the rooms of AA, which is where I then eventually ended up, they say that alcoholism has 3 phases. There's drinking with fun, and then there's drinking with fun and problems, and then there's just drinking with problems. And I had reached that 3rd phase when I decided that I had to stop in order to continue living a productive and safe life.
Okay. And how long did you drink for?
34 years.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, I guess, what does growth mean to you, right now?
Well, it means to continue on the path that I have chosen as a creative, and to not give up, be discouraged, or be distracted by temporary pleasures or involvements. It's easy. For a long time, immediately after my retirement, I had a series of girlfriends, and with each of them, the basic schedule of my life was to do whatever work was necessary during the daylight hours, and then it was essentially Netflix and chill. And at that point, before I quit drinking, chill meant drink and watch a movie, which I might or might not remember the next morning. And so, what was the question again?
Yeah, the question was, what does growth mean at this point for you?
Well, it definitely means remaining sober, because that's kind of a fundamental element of my ability to create value and to grow. And I think part of the foundation for growth and composure is to have a sense of gratitude. No matter what is happening, to have the gratitude for the elements of what is happening for which you should be grateful. You're alive, and for the most part, I'm healthy, and I work on paying attention to my health to sustain that, so I can continue to work, to be there for my children, my grandchildren, and I now have great grandchildren who I just got to meet for the first time because they're on the East Coast, and they're 1, 2, and 5.
Wow. That sounds fantastic. So what is that practice of gratitude? So talk to me about the mindset, the grateful mindset, and what does that really mean in terms of practice for you?
Define practice for me.
How do you ground yourself in that sort of gratitude on a daily?
Okay, the practice of the Buddhism that I practice is the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not.
Tina Turner did it and kind of made it famous in the biopic about her, What's Love Got to Do with It? It was she discovered it and was the turning point for her divorce from Ike Turner and her subsequent success as a singer and actress. And so I do that every day, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which means devotion to the mystic law of cause and effect through sound, which the sound is that of chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And that also, Myoho Renge Kyo, is the title of the Lotus Sutra, which is the highest of Siddhartha Shakyamuni's lifelong teachings, lifespan of teachings. And essentially, what I have absorbed from the study and practice of this Buddhism is that every person has Buddhahood, enlightenment, the potential to be content, composed, productive, every single person. And, in today's social landscape, when you look at some people, it's hard to believe that. But that's part of why I practice, is to have hope. We have a religious faith, and then faith in turn begets hope, and hope is the foundation of action. If you have no hope, hopeless people do not take action. So that's,
I think, hopelessness is a march towards death.
Exactly, yes, and a failure to produce, to be creative, is if we're not growing, we're shrinking. And entropy, it leads to death.
Okay. I'm very motivated to ask you about the distinction between, being righteous or good in a Christian or Abrahamic sense, and being enlightened in a Buddhist sense. Do you see a distinction, a difference, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, I'm not aware of any Buddhism that is monotheistic. There's no.
Sure.
It's more pantheistic.
Yeah.
And repeat the question again for me.
Yeah. So I guess my question was specific to, I guess, a sense of righteousness
Right.
and good versus enlightenment. And I mean, I'm just thinking about it, right? If you, my train of thought is, if you're righteous, if you do good, if if that's your mindset, then you will possibly arrive at enlightenment. And so that's what I'm thinking. But
Right.
tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, I'm hesitant to inundate you with all the theory of the Buddhism that I practice, but on the other hand, it kind of explains why it's significant and effective for me. So the difference between righteous and my personal thought is that no one is righteous all the time.
No.
And so Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, the Myoho means mystic, which means for me that there are elements to our existence and the universe in which we exist, which our rational minds cannot explain or understand fully. But then Renge is actually the Japanese word for lotus. And the lotus is significant, is a metaphor for the law of cause and effect because it's self-germinating. So the law of cause and effect is that every cause you make, everything you do, what we're doing right now will have some effect. We don't know who's going to watch your podcast or what they're going to do as a result of it, but it will have an effect. And
I bet you they're going to Google Buddhism. That's the one thing they'll do.
And so every moment, getting way deep into the theory of it, but I try to synopsize it, is that in every moment, I mean, like Ram Dass, you're familiar with Ram Dass?
I am not.
He's kind of a generalist in religious and philosophical theories, and he's amalgamated his own perspective, which he shares. And his first book, which made him famous, was Be Here Now. For one thing, he was actually previously Richard Alpert, who was with Timothy Leary, was one of the researchers on LSD back in the 1950s.
Okay.
But he became Ram Dass, and his first book was Be Here Now, which kind of, more than any of the contents of that book, the title itself is the most essential thing, just to be here now, to not be worrying about what you did, not be worrying about what's going to happen except as an effect of what you do right now.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, and so we got to talking about faith and Buddhism and spirituality. If you were to just in a sentence tell me, what does growth mean? I guess you alluded to, the creative work that you're doing, the writing, the projects you're taking on with your partner. Is that the gist of it? That's what growth means at this point for you?
It's probably the most important part, yeah, because there's the intellectual, the aesthetic, and the physical. I've kind of slacked off on going to the gym lately, and that does matter. It's all part of a cohesive package of existence.
Okay. How do you put all those together? Like, is there a unifying framework? I guess it's the Buddhist mindset, right? And being of service. I'm trying to, kind of get into your head a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Being of service is definitely a part of it. The Bodhisattva way.
Yeah, that's what that's what motivates you to do the work that you're doing. But taking care of yourself, is that also a teaching or part of that philosophy?
Yeah, I think that our interactions with each other, every person that we have any interaction with, whether it's somebody panhandling on the median on the intersection, or it's your family, your partners, your ex-partners, our interrelationships with them shape our lives as much as theirs.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. And at this point, I guess my last question is, what is what is a challenge that you're facing in your growth, and how are you dealing with it?
Well, that's a good one, because it's not so much related to my growth in terms of my creative process. I think that's on a steady upward incline, and I'm growing as a creator. My skills in video production and editing are improving with practice, and I should add that I think everything improves with practice. That's why we need to keep going to the gym. We need to keep reading. We need to keep listening to other people's thoughts, to study what others have to say. And remind me again of the original question.
What challenges are you facing when it comes to growth?
Right, the ongoing challenge of my life, and we, the Buddhist community or Buddhist believers, believe in karma, which is not original to Buddha. It was, Buddha, the original historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, Siddhartha Shakyamuni, was a Hindu. He grew up in a Hindu society, and karma has already been the concept had been formulated in Hinduism. But it's essential that everything that we do has an effect, whether it's word, thought, or deed. And so my personal karma, and it spans, eternity. We believe that, this is not a one-shot deal. It's not one and done. We will continue in the universe along with the rest of the elements of the universe. But so the inclinations, the proclivities that we have here and now in this lifetime, if we choose to want to change them, the only time we can do that is here and now. But my challenge in this lifetime is an inclination towards a tendency towards anger, that I can easily become frustrated, and frustration doesn't have to be, and that's where frustration versus contentment, it's kind of the enemy of enlightenment, to become frustrated, to not see that it's possible to transform whatever situation, because every situation can be transformed. I do believe that.
Okay. And so how do you, I guess, think about anger, and how do you, let yourself go there?
It is very much rooted in being present in the moment, instead of just being carried away with inclination. And I don't have a better explanation for that. I'm not really, excuse me, a Buddhist scholar, and I don't know all the answers, but I do know that that karma provides us with inclinations to do things. But if I can take a breath and consider the moment, the situation, it's possible to be objective about it, and to not see the other person, or and it's usually the other person. It's usually not just a wall or a rock. It's another person is not responsible for my unhappiness, not responsible really for my frustration.
Yeah. As I was asking you that question, I was thinking about, what makes me angry. And I feel like for me, it's having expectations, expecting people to act a certain way,
right,
and say certain things, do certain things, etc. And that's not healthy, I guess. It's never healthy to expect people to be any which way that you want them to be. And I'm just pondering, what is a good reaction when, at the same time, you can want certain things.
Sure.
It's not to say you have to be okay with whatever.
No.
But I'm just thinking about what would be an acceptable form of expression that's not angry,
Right.
but that you are maybe standing up for yourself
To-
is a way of replacing anger with, okay, I will, or finding alternative means or ways to achieve whatever it is that you were trying to achieve, and that didn't happen because somebody didn't meet your expectations.
Right.
Right. So I feel like maybe in a way anger comes from disappointment. And disappointment only happens when you see no alternative.
When you expect something that may or may not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that stating those expectations in a moment of confrontation, and this is not so much, I mean, I believe that Buddhism applies to everything, but this is more like what I've just learned from popular psychology, transactional analysis, or whatever, that you need to be clear and state to express your feelings without expressing them as anger at the situation, to let the other person know where your frustration or let them know what your expectations are. They can choose to try to accommodate those expectations, or they can tell you why they have no intention of accommodating those expectations.
Or if they actually want to accommodate your expectations but come up short, you need to accept that this person tried.
Right.
They're not,
and give them credit for that.
yeah, and they're not out to disappoint you.
Exactly.
And
They always say, don't take it personally.
yeah, it's, okay. So great conversation so far. Just in the, 30, 40 minutes that we've been speaking, I get the sense that you've lived a lot of life. You've had a lot of experiences. You've gone through ups and downs and all kinds of transitions and changes in your life. And you said you're 73?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you've had a lot more time than me, at least. And I think most of my other guests have been younger than you. To learn and be on this planet and live life. So, what can you tell us about, life, how to live it, where or how can somebody like me or somebody younger than me really live their lives in a way that that they can, I guess, they can really take advantage of every moment. Again, everyone has their own life, circumstances and story, and where they're born, the families they're born into, etc.
Right.
But I feel like living life is not so much about the circumstances that you're born into or that you find yourself in. I feel like what you've been saying is it's a frame of mind. It's how you think about whatever circumstance you are in, right?
Right.
So is that what, the lesson that, you can teach us is?
I'm not sure that I qualify as a teacher, but
Well, I feel like I feel like every person has something to teach because they've lived them. They lived being them.
right,
And because of that, they are an expert in
being them.
in being themselves.
But is applicable because all 8 billion of us are part of the same system, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully we all have something to offer to each other. And of those things, like I said, I don't really feel like I have any unique or original thoughts, but what I have accumulated as part of my collective wisdom There are things that other people have said that I feel have helped me,
Yeah.
just giving me perspective. When I'm on the brink of doing something that I will regret, I can think of epithets that they may be seen sometimes as bumper sticker slogans, but if they work, they work. And there's no premium for just sounding profound. But some of I think that kindness is an underrated element of our existence. That we just need to focus on being kind, to consider to ourselves as well as to others, and to our environment. Something we haven't touched on at all at this point was that we are components of elements in the universe, which means in the ecosystem. And I don't really believe that we are superior in the way that most of us believe that we are superior to the other elements, the other animals, the plants.
I don't believe that at all. I feel like everything is just what it is. We're all different.
Right.
I don't think I'm any superior than a rock is, or a
Right.
tree, or I think the only species that I know of that have that sort of that at least I don't think animals think that way.
Right.
Animals, I guess, think to some extent. They don't walk into walls.
Right. Right.
A cow doesn't just walk into a wall, so that they have some cognitive ability. But I feel like everything that makes us sort of unkind it stems from this notion of something is better than something else.
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And I was raised, we also hadn't touched on, I was raised in a very fundamentalist Protestant environment up until I was able to leave home and think for myself. And in that environment, I did learn a lot of the Bible and retained what I'd learned. And the whole myth of the Garden of Eden, where God says, "Don't eat of that; it will give you the knowledge of good and evil." I think it's an apt myth to explain why humans are so fucked up. Is that we think about things as opposed to the other species, which think on an instinctive level to do what is right for them and within that environment. And humans are, if our greatest distinction and probably our greatest downfall is overthinking.
Yeah. So I'm really tempted to continue this conversation, and I will for just a little bit. So I listened to this person on YouTube. I won't get into who they are or whatever, but essentially they made a very interesting point in one of their videos, and that was that every other animal, every other living thing on this planet, at least, is content when they eat enough, they have enough to be alive. Humans aren't that way.
No.
You can accumulate wealth, you can accumulate whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And you want more.
Right.
So in a sense, I kind of don't see thinking as our superpower or what makes us, because I think thinking is, dogs have certain cognitive abilities.
Right.
Cats do, cows do. Everything thinks, even plants, they turn towards the sun.
Right.
When you put them, behind, close to a window.
They are sentient for sure.
Yeah. So I think thinking is just an heightened capacity that other living things also have. But I think what we have is consciousness, and we can observe ourselves. And I don't know. I don't think, at least at this point, I don't think I can make the distinction in in a very, I can make this distinction in my head between consciousness and being conscious, being conscious, and being a thinking being. I think those are two different things in my head, but I cannot point to something in my body and say, this is consciousness,
Here's where it happens.
this is thinking.
Right.
So that's, I feel like what we have that's special is that sense of being connected to everything else. It's the spiritual realm, I
Right.
feel, that is transcendent, that's special. And so that's my opinion. I just wanted to share that.
And I don't disagree with that. I think that we don't know what other species are thinking.
No, we don't.
So their
Good point.
level of consciousness may be far greater than we presume.
I can't disagree with that. So, it's been a great conversation, Will. Do you
Yeah.
have any last words?
No, thank you for sharing. I feel like dialogue like this is essential to progress for society. That if people listened and talked and shared their ideas sincerely and had them listened to, we could make progress.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.